Welcome to Rock Solid Productions, where in this video we're going to look at the different wireless controller options out there for the Super NES Classic Edition. Hey everyone, Gary here with Rock Solid Production, and one of the things that I've been asked to do recently has been to do a shootout versus a number of different wireless controller options for the Super NES Classic Edition, which we have playing back behind us here. Now, the stock Super NES Classic comes with a great controller. It's well balanced. It feels exactly like the original one did way back from the 1990s. Good Lord, way back in the... I feel old now. Anyways, but one of the things with the Super NES Classic Edition, as you can see, this is my Player 2 controller because I've yet to even unwrap it. But it came with, well, a longer cord than the NES Classic Edition. It still came with a relatively short cord. Where I am from here to the camera is about the same distance from my TV to my couch that I like to play on, and this just isn't long enough. Yes, I can get extension cables and adapters to make that run, but quite honestly, with three dogs running through here, myself walking through here who's a klutz, I don't want to trip over cables. So that's where a number of different companies have come out with different wireless options available for the SNES Classic Edition. We have on our desk here, we have the Yoke wireless controller. We have the 8-bit DOE 2.4 gigahertz wireless controller. We have the Hyperkin 2.4 gigahertz controller. We have the 8-bit DOE Bluetooth controller, the SN30 Pro. And then we also have the Nyko Super MIniboss. Now, with all these, we're going to take a look at the aesthetics of all of them, what they come with, different features, different advantages and disadvantages each one has. We're going to do some gameplay with them too. So let's get started. So I'm going to play the same three games with all of the controllers that we have here, and I'm going to start with the Nyko Super MIniboss. Now, one of the things that I noticed with some of the controllers is in Street Fighter II Turbo, not all of the games would always, like I couldn't always pull off all of the moves. So that's why we're going to use this as a good test, just to see the responsiveness on the controller. Now, one thing that's interesting is I'm going to pick Ryu like I always do. How often do I get paired against Dalsim? So options, and I'm going to change my configuration real quick. And we're going to pick Ryu. Dalsim, of course, it's Dalsim. I can pull off the fireball more times than not, but it's not great. I was actually able to pull off the dragon uppercut there, and that's towards, down, down, and towards your opponent to pull off that move. For the fireball, it's away, down, and away, down. Same thing for the spinning side kick. Ooh, burn my ass. Got me twice! Wow, he may get a perfect victory against me. Seems like this game I'm having a little bit more of an issue doing the fireballs, the spinning side kicks. 10 seconds. Oh! He's going to win on a time limit draw. I was able to pull off the dragon uppercut there. It's just really inconsistent how frequently I can and cannot pull off maneuvers. So there's Street Fighter II on the Nyko Super MIniboss. Now we're going to try another game with it. And here's the bummer, is down and select on most of the others will get me to the home page. Doesn't do anything for me here. So that is one of the downsides on this controller. We're going to go up, we're going to hit reset, we're going to go to the main menu, and we are going to pick our next game. Much like on the NES, where Punch-Out can a lot of times determine or be a good example of latency, Super Punch-Out on the Super NES Classic is another good example of it here on this system. So we're going to go and we'll try to beat, I think, Gabby J. Is that the first one, I think? We are going to play a new game. So we will we'll see how fast we can get past Gabby J and go from there. Had to remember what some of the button presses were here, because it is a little bit different than Punch-Out. Right in the breadbasket. That's 2. He countered me when I was trying to do my super punch. I'm going to come at you like a spider monkey, Chet. So that is Gabby J on Punch-Out. Again, I felt a little bit of a delay, not terrible, but it was noticeable. So next we're going to go to our final game on the Nyko Super MIniboss, and that's going to be Super Castlevania 4. Super Castlevania 4 is possibly my favorite game next to Super Mario World that was on the Super NES Classic Edition. Just a great action game. The graphics and the music are amazing. I can't say enough great things about this game. It is just, it's great. It's, dare I say, flawless? It's not flawless, but from the background to the music to the controls, everything is just really great on this game. And it was an early release in the life of the Super NES as well. Now I hit B to jump and I died, so that's not a good sign. You know, back when I did my initial review on the Super MIniboss, you know, I wasn't very harsh on it, but it wasn't a stellar review, I don't think. As I've gone to use other controllers, it really, some of its weaknesses have really become apparent to me. I'm able to do the down and diagonal whip action, which is, you know, something that you need to have a very responsive controller to be able to do, and it can pull that off. That was weird there too. A couple button presses didn't even register. Able to kind of do the whip twirl there. There again, I'm getting, it feels like missed button presses. That was weird there too, because I actually had my finger off of the D-pad, and yet Simon kept moving forward. I know a lot of people, oh, it's Nyko, of course it's not going to be the best. To this point, I've actually been pretty happy with my recent Nyko purchases. But this one definitely leaves a little bit to be desired, at least relatively speaking to some of the other game or other controllers that are out there. So able to get both bats. And I think this level is just a good example of just great level design and gameplay. And, you know, if there I was pressing up and again it wasn't registering my key press. I was hitting Y a number of times and it wasn't registering my key press. I gotta say the Nyko Super MIniboss is consistently inconsistent here. So going down the stairs, we're gonna pause, and I think next up we're going to switch to the Hyperkin 2.4 gigahertz wireless controller. Now, much like the Nyko Super MIniboss, the Hyperkin does not allow you to press down and select to get back to the main menu that we have here. Kind of a bummer. I do really like the mold on this controller. It's super comfortable. When I first looked at it, I wasn't sure that I was going to like it, but I really do. Let's dive into Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So again, let's see how many times we get Dhalsim. They're 2 for 2. So far I've been able to pull off a couple of my specials. Perfect! Well, and that's funny because in the review, if you guys check it out, one of the things that I did ding the Hyperkin controller on was a little bit lack of responsiveness. And there, it's been a while since I've had a perfect game against an opponent. Oh, Yoga Noogie. I would say definitely better than the Nyko Super MIniboss. And it could be one of those things that, you know, going from one to the next, you know, kind of learning to play around the limitations is making it less noticeable on this one. So definitely compared to the Nyko Super MIniboss, it is more responsive. Now, does this have down and select? It does not, which kind of a bummer. So we're going to pause in just a second here, and we're going to switch, and we're going to hit up some Super Punch-Out. Okay, so Super Punch-Out we will find right there. And same thing, we'll take on Gabby J. So I think it's weird that it's Y and B for left and right versus like B and A. This definitely does feel more responsive than the Nyko controller, I will say that much. I was able to hit the special punch there without any issues. Part of it was just not remembering how to do it. Gabby J counter punch there. Now, it was not an issue with the Nyko Super MIniboss, so that was good. You know, pretty consistent there. And like that, Gabby J is down in 26, almost 27 seconds, so not too shabby. Let's move on to our final game here, Super Castlevania 4. So heading on into Super Castlevania 4. I know some of you may be wondering, hey, why aren't you playing, you know, Super Mario World or Mario Kart or Zelda? One of the reasons, quite honestly, is copyright strikes from Nintendo. So I want to make sure that, you know, there's no issues with anything along those lines. Now, this is the controller that I'm probably second most recently familiar with. The 8-bit DO 2.4 gigahertz is the most recent one that I've reviewed here on the channel. Hey, I got across and I didn't die like on the Nyko controller. That was really kind of odd. Now, when I filmed our review on this controller with Super Castlevania 4, you know, I felt that it was pretty solid in this game. Did not feel the hesitation or the lag like what I had in Street Fighter. And here too, again, feeling pretty solid. You know, it was quite odd that it felt like I was missing button presses on the Nyko. Have not experienced that thus far with the Hyperkin. I mean, overall, like I say, I really do like the aesthetic, or not just the aesthetics, but the mold and the design that has gone into the Hyperkin controller here. The humps on the back feel really nice. And actually it reminds me a lot of the corded controller, the wired controller that comes with the Super Retron HD. So far so good here on Super Castlevania 4. Able to swing without any problems. That was a bit odd where it just kept going to the left after I had let go. Here, and I'm pressing the D-pad around to kind of do the whirl around with the whip, and it's not the most active there. Took 2 or 3 times there to jump. Very not cool. Hitting the button to whip. I mean, you guys see that I'm hitting the button now and nothing's happening. Well, that's pretty telling here on the Hyperkin. So we're going to swap this one out. And next we're going to use the Yoke 2.4 gigahertz wireless controller and see how that stacks up. Now, one thing I've got to make sure on the Yoke controller is I don't have any of the turbo functions or auto function turn on, and I don't. Now, if you want to see how the turbo functionality works on it, make sure you check out my video. I'll link to it right up there, where I was actually for the first time ever able to beat Star Fox on the Super NES Classic Edition using this controller. So my expectations for this controller pretty high. Even though, quite honestly, looking at it, it's like it's not the most aesthetically attractive. And I'm going to leave the disc on here too. And go into game start. Are we 3 for 3 on? 3 for 3 on Dalsim. At least what's nice about that is we have a consistent opponent. Wow, took quite a few times to do a Hidoken there. Cannot do the Dragon Upper Punch. Oop. Interesting that maybe I need to slow it down a little bit. Yoga Noogie, Yoga Noogie, Yoga Noogie. Oh, it got me right at the end. So I wonder if part of the issue that I'm running into on Street Fighter isn't that I'm trying to do the moves too fast. No, because it doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of difference. Oh, Yoga Noogie. I always thought that was a cheap, oh, way that he can just, extend out his body parts to be able to hit you better from a distance. So is that 3? No, that's only 2. Here's round 3. He walked into that one. Yeah, not able to pull off the Hidoken as consistently as I thought I would be. It's actually surprising. But did manage to beat him. Now, let's see this one. Selecting down. Hey now. So that is one advantage that this does have over the first 2 controllers. Let's go to Super Punch-Out. Gabby J! So what did we beat him last time? 20, just shy of 27 seconds. Let's see what we have here. Sit down, old man. So a little bit slower there. He has gotten a few shots in as well. Let's see if we can counter punch here. No, we missed it. Having a bigger trouble with him this time than I did with either the first 2. Let's see if we can't get him this time. There we go. Wow, it took a little bit longer though. I'm shocked that this has taken, has some of the latency issues that I didn't think that it had. Let's go into Super Castlevania 4 now. I do love the fact that the down and select works to get me back to the main menu. What's nice about it too, I don't have to do as much editing after the fact either to go from one to the next. Yes, I know that's laziness on my part, but still. So far, so good in this. It was just really odd that I got into that one part with both the first two controllers, the Nyko Super MIniboss and the Hyperkin controller, and basically, you know, like lost control or input or whatever it was. It feels much more responsive than the first two there, though, for that kind of the whip move that I like to do. That's a good general defense move, I think, against like the bats when you see them coming in from the screen, because it makes it, when they get hit, it kind of stops their flight and path. Yeah, on this it seems just fine. The L and R buttons are definitely more clicky, I'd say, on this controller, and I do miss the concave convex layout of all of the other controllers. This is the only one that follows more of the Super Famicom style controller. Now, you can get the 8-bit DOE controller with that button configuration like the Super Famicom. I just chose the Super NES style, but this, the yoke controller, the only way that it is available is with this button layout and configuration. No issues there, and I mean, everything here works fine. So I'd say out of the three that we've tested so far, between the Nyko, the Hyperkin, and the yoke definitely more responsive than the other two. Now, with the two 8-bit DOE gamepads, I'm only going to do test gameplay footage with this version. And that's because you can't get this version anymore. It's actually been discontinued by 8-bit DOE. And this is their direct replacement for this controller. Now, there is a variant of this that now has dual analog sticks, a home and a capture button, so you can use it with the Switch, and I'll have a link to that down below in the more info section. But this controller is no longer available. So again, just going to test this one. So swap the dongles out and get our final testing in. So we have the 8-bit DOE controller here, and I'm actually still in Super Castlevania 4. I'm going to press down and select. Do we have a winner? We have a winner, and that's one of the cool things. 8-bit DOE is one of the first ones to do that in any of their controllers, that it does have that functionality. So again, we'll go back through Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Let's see if we are 4 for 4 on here. And here on this screen, we've got Ryu and Dalsim 4 for 4. So at least it's nice that we get consistent enemies that we're fighting here. Much better, I mean, right out of the gate. A little bit too far away to pull off the Hiroken, or Hadouken. Pretty clean victory there over Dalsim. Able to pull it off much more consistently here with this one. Man, kicked his rear end, and yeah, definitely out of all 4 of them that I've tried, the most responsive so far. So again, select and down gets me back to the main menu. That's such a great shortcut to have in here. Thank you, 8-bit DOE. Now, Gabby J has at least won one fight in his career, so he does have that going for him. Feels pretty good so far. Knocked him down. I don't know what I did earlier on where I knocked him down, and maybe it was a minute 27, not 27, because that would seem like a really fast knockout there. Oh, got him to 8. Well, no, here's 31-28, so second fastest that I've knocked him down. And with that, we're going to go to Super Castlevania 4. Now, in the review here of the 8BitDo gamepad, I remember remarking just how responsive the controller felt in that, and here playing back to back to back, it is probably the most responsive out of all of them that we've tested. It feels great. I do love the fact too that it feels like the NES gamepad. If you've seen any of our live streams that I've done recently with like Joe and Mac, I've been playing using the Retrobit Dual Link controllers, and they work awesome. And I have to use those because I don't have one of the 8BitDo wireless receivers for the Super NES. I'd say mold quality is as good as what Retrobit has on that controller there. And the fact that it's feeling as responsive as a wired controller too is always a good thing. I love that angled whip attack. And pulling that move out without any issue. Now, the one thing on these controllers is availability, where you can actually get them. I ended up purchasing the yoke controllers that I own from our local GameStop, and I do actually own 2 of those. That way I can easily have a player 1, player 2, and kind of identify which is which, just because one is red and one is blue. It is the only controller out of these next to this one that actually offers a color variant. Now this one, the 8BitDo controller, it's less of a color variant and more of a design variant, where they offer both this one, which mimics the Super NES controller, and they also offer one that mimics the Super Famicom controller. No issue whatsoever here with the 8BitDo 2.4 gigahertz controller. Definitely spot on. So what do I think of these? Let's bring all 4 of them in here. Quite honestly, they all have their strengths, they all have their weaknesses. Both the Nyko and the yoke controllers, they do have a turbo button functionality on them. With the yoke controller, it's just a slide switch as far as if you want it to be rapid fire when you hold the button or auto fire for you. The Nyko Super MIniboss only has a rapid fire, and you have to program that into the controller itself. This one here does utilize rechargeable batteries, which the yoke controller does not. It does have a port right here to be able to charge using your like a micro USB cable. Out of all of them, the yoke is the only one that uses AAA batteries. The Super MIniboss uses rechargeables, as does the Hyperkin, as does the 8BitDo gamepad. Configuration-wise, on the controllers, the yoke is probably the most divergent of what the Super NES controller was, and I would say the 8BitDo gamepad is probably the closest. As far as overall comfort, I actually really like the Hyperkin 2.4 gigahertz wireless controller as far as comfort. The humps on the back are super comfortable, and they help alleviate fatigue. The ribbing up here is more for aesthetics, not really functional for anything. Button placement and everything felt good. None of the buttons felt bad on these, but I will say that the Nyko Super MIniboss probably had the worst button feel. And the D-pad on the yoke controller may take a while for some of you to get used to. Now, it does have this little cover on it that will take you from like the disc configuration to more of a D-pad, but it's still floating on top of that, like a micro switch type setup versus being a conventional D-pad like what the Super NES had. As far as performance, lag, latency, so on and so forth, I would have to say probably the 8BitDo gamepad is the most responsive out of all of them. It had the least amount of lag and latency that I felt while playing. I had honestly thought the yoke controller was going to feel better than it did. I was not expecting the lag and latency that I felt with this, but some of it may have been when I did the review on this, I had been using this or vice versa, and because I tested both about the same time, and this did feel better. The Hyperkin, like I say, I like the mold, I like the feel, but it does have some weird responses to it. The yoke and the Nyko Super MIniboss, neither one of them have the home screen shortcut where you can press down and select to get you the home screen. The Hyperkin and the 8-bit Do controller both have that, which is definitely nice to have. You can get any of these for under $25, and on the Hyperkin you can actually get it from CastleVaniaGames.com, and if you use promo code ROX10 you can save 10% if you want to go ahead and try one of these out. I would say that my order as far as what I like would probably be, like I mentioned, the 8-bit Do controller, the Yoke controller, the Hyperkin, and then finally the Nyko Super MIniboss. But these are just my opinions. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Let me know what you found for a wireless solution, what you're using, and what you really like for your application. You can also go ahead and email me if you have any questions about any of these 4 controllers, or even the Bluetooth controller. Email me at rocksolidmail@gmail.com, or you can send your questions to me on Twitter too, at RockSolidStudios. And we're always talking about gaming over on our Facebook page, facebook.com/RockSolidProductions. Finally, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of what we do here without our Patreon, like these 3 guys here. These are our Patreon supporters, and you know, for as little as $1 a month, you can help support the future of Rock Solid Productions. You also get early access to all of our video content. We put it up a couple days early for our patrons to go ahead and check out. So, 4 really good wireless controllers for the Super NES Classic. I would say the 2 champions as far as functionality, responsiveness, would probably be the 8-bit Do 2.4 gigahertz gamepad and the Yoke wireless gamepad. These are my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.